Right. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is the video 2 of our series of langgraph and langsmith. So in the first video, we looked at how do we provide a topic, and then we could define the number of analysts that we would want to create for our research assistant, use case that we are looking at, and then we could generate some analysts. In this video, what we are going to look at is we'll generate the analyst. We'll start from the last part where we left off in video 1. Once we generate some analysts, what we'll do is we'll pick up an analyst out of the generated analyst, one of those, and then we will run some interview. While we run the interview between an analyst and an expert, we will utilize some search tools, which will do some online search using Tavily API, Wikipedia loaders, etc. And then it will generate some context from the search from the online web search, and then ask an expert to generate some responses based on the information that it has got from the web. Then finally, we will have some writing section that we have created, or think it as a writing assistant that will generate some responses based on the information that it has collected and present it all the way back to the user. So in a nutshell, we would have this premise wherein a topic is being provided, and analysts have been created, the research automation kicks in off, a question is being generated, and then expert answers utilizes certain tools like the search web and Wikipedia, or you could use any other search tools, be it Perplexity in if you would like to use that. And then finally we generate some report. So that's the overall premise that we are doing at this stage. And let's start with that. Okay, so we are providing the same research topic, that is Microsoft Q3 report and its impact into investment made by Microsoft in generative AI startups. We can generate some analysts, let the analysts be generated. Once the analysts are generated, we will pick randomly one of those analysts which we think works better for us. And by the way, this is the one place where you could even think of introducing a human feedback or human in the loop, wherein you could decide what all analysts that you would want to put in or create in at this stage, and that's possible as well. So we'll pick one that we think is better suited over here. Let's say I go ahead with the analyst 2, and then I run interview. Now this is the part that will take some time. While it does, let's look at few things in our code that we are doing, because that will become very important for us while we look in langsmith what we are actually doing in our code and how it is beautifully crafted as an observability tool for you to look at what's happening under hood. So it's no more a black box for anyone to understand what's happening between different agents and how they are doing it. Cool. So in the meantime, that process of running the interview between an expert and an analyst happens, let's look at few things. So as always, we start with our message state. We create a class interview state, and then we passes the messages to that class, because that's how langgraph work. It preserves the states between different steps that you would like to do. So this is the first instructions that we are putting in as part of our system message that we have defined. This is purely, the instructions that are is being used by analysts to generate some questions. So like I said, analysts generate some question. What we have created first, we created some analyst. Now analysts generate some question. For generating some questions, we need certain instructions. Typically in LLM world or in generative AI world, we call them as system message. And this is what in line number 158, you would see that this is what we are doing. We are passing the system message by defining certain prompt instructions to our analyst. So that's first thing to note. Hold on for now. Just keep that in thought that these are certain instructions that are being given to the analyst to generate some questions. Now, once that is being done, what we are doing is we are using certain web tools, search tools like Tavily Search, which again uses certain instructions to provide you the final response. In order to do that, we are again providing certain system messages to the Tavily API, and then this is what it is being doing. So these are the certain instructions that are being provided, and here's a little trick that is being done. So instead of asking the Tavily API with all the instructions that we have defined as a system message, along with the state message, which of course is the question in this case that the analyst has generated, what is happening? We are creating a little search query. Basis on these information, we are using an LLM call again to do some search query so that it is more effective. Rather than providing all the information, we are using first an LLM to create a search query. So that's another efficient way of how you could leverage certain search tools to get them efficient results. And then here is small string formatting that we are doing for all the responses that we are getting. Same thing for the search Wikipedia tool as well. And then here is another system message, or say instructions, that you could think of that we are providing to an expert that is going to be interviewed by an analyst. So we looked at the system message and instructions, or instructions for an analyst. We looked at the instructions that we have provided in the search tools, and then now finally we are looking at the answer instructions that we are providing for an expert for the conversation that happens between the analyst and the expert. Cool. So this is another instruction that is being provided, and you would notice what we are doing is we are to answer this question use this context. Now the context is purely what you are getting from your search results, something like from the search API, from the table API, or from the Wikipedia API. So essentially, this is all getting appended to your context, and then this is being, think of it like what you do in drag as well. You basically extract entire text from your documents and then put it into an instruction, and then ask any RAG application to provide you some responses. So that's the same goal. You are provided certain instructions, you use those contexts that you got from the search results, and then you ask the answer basis on those. And then finally you use those instructions in generate answer function, and then you again preserve the state of messages. You pass all the entire conversation with along with those functions, and then you return the answer. Once that is being done, you save those answers, and then here's another trick that we are doing is we are basically using number of turns. Now this is all something that you could parameterize. You could take a call whether you want to do it for number of turns, two number of turns, three, four, or whatever. Now that's one way that you could define that for how many turns that they would continue to be engaged in a conversation. But then there is another trick. If in any of your questions it comes up with a string that thank you so much for your help, okay, while analyst is asking a question, if it happens, it turned out to be a case that it turns out to be one of your question turns out to be thank you so much for your help, what it means is really that the conversation is really ended out. It has got all the information what it really needed to get from the expert, and that's it. So that's another way you could do some substring formatting in your responses, and that's how you could get those information done. Another system instructions that we are looking at is for writer. That is what we are finally, when we get the answer, we just write these out into a nice well structured document and then show them on the UI. And then finally we write those things, we create those graphs, and then get the responses. So in a nutshell, this is what we are doing. We start, we ask a question, analyst ask a question. When it asks a question, it basically utilizes for the expert to answer. It utilizes certain tools like search web, search Wikipedia, or anything else in your use case that you would want to put, and then it continues for number of turns that we have defined in, or so the string that we have put in, the condition that we have put in. Once expert answers the question, it saves the interview, and then we write it out and end the interview at that stage. So that's primarily what we are going to do in this application. And then let's see. So yeah, so we've got the interview ended. Here is the response that analyst and expert got in the conversation, and that's finally they have created certain reports. So this is the report that it looks like, that it has generated, basis on the conversation that we between the analyst and the expert that happened, provided on the topic that we have created. So this is the final report that it has created. It has given you nice sources that it has collected out of the Stability API or the Wikipedia tools that we have provided, and these all are the sources that we got from the search web. So that's purely what we are doing in this research assistant, and we got the response. Now let's look at the interesting part which would help us out in understanding what is really happening under the hood. Okay, so to look at it, let's go to our langsmith. Let's look at conduct interviews. Let's collapse everything and let's start looking at it. Let me just refresh it, get the latest logs. Okay, here we go. Cool. So this is the latest one. This is the time right now. We are looking at 4th of January. We are doing this this time, and let's look and let's collapse everything. Cool. So conduct interview is what we defined in our code. As while we were running this, we generally define it as part of our code, where we will mention as in how it should look like when it goes into langsmith. What is the name of the function that it should be logging the trace, along with that. So first thing first, we start off with ask question, and that's the place, where we looked at the system instructions, that was provided to the analyst. So take a look at this. This is a system instruction that we were providing. So you are an analyst tasked with interviewing, and we picked up the analyst. So it has really very well showed that this was the analyst against which it is running. So it has picked up those. It is showing the analyst that we selected from the UI. This analyst has come in over here in our system message, and that's it. So this is the entire system message and system instructions we showed. And then we could look at this. This is finally the answer that we have created over here. Let's go back. Let's come down. Okay, so this is the answer that we have gotten. This is the final answer that we have gotten while we ask a question. And yeah, so that's fairly what the analyst has created. So analyst has created a question, and this question is going to be a part of all your search queries. And then let's see how those goes out. Now let's expand search web, our next tool, what we were looking at. Okay, so now let's look at this. So in the search tool, we have got another call that we made to OpenAI, wherein we are looking at between the conversation. This is the system message that we provided, or the system instructions that we provided to the search web. And now if you look at it, AI messages or AI expert message, these are all the messages that we have run, that we have actually run against, during in our state, and it has basically preserved those and appended to all our runs. So think of like, whatever conversations that were happening, it has actually preserved them. Whatever is the AI conversation is being shown, this is actually the AI response that was generated, and this has been appended very well along with your system instructions. And then finally it has created a search query. So the idea of this entire flow of this chat OpenAI, in the entire flow, was to create a search query basis on these entire instructions. And here it is. So it says that Microsoft investment in generative impact on consumer behavior market trends 2023. So this is basically a nice little search query finally. Instead of these entire messages, it has created one nice little search query, which finally will give us the results using the Tavily API, and then will give us some responses. So if we look at this Tavily results JSON, This is going to take in all these information, whatever input that we have created out of those queries. So search query, actually whatever we did in the step one goes as an input to the Tavily API, and then it gives you an output. So if you look at this output, this is a nice output which is basically giving you certain content, URL, and then all the information. So far what we have done, we have basically looked at the system instructions of the analyst. We looked at the instructions of search API. Similarly, same thing would happen for the Wikipedia. And then finally, what we are looking at the instructions that has been went all the way or given all the way to the expert. Now let's look at what is happening with the expert. So this is, you are an expert being interviewed by this. So here is the analyst's name. Here is the goal is to answer a question posted by the interview. Now look at this. To answer this question, use this context. Now what is this context? This context is actually the entire result that you have got from all your search results, be it Tavily API, be it Wikipedia and whatnot. So whatever you got from there is actually coming back over here, and then you could really look at it, how beautifully that it has been showing within your langgraph, within your langsmith system messages that you could really look at. And this again is all the conversation that we always append. And finally, here is the output. Here is the nice output that it has created basis on those information, and that's it. It is the output that it has created. Now again, this will continue to happen if it was justified, if it was okay with the conversation, with even the single message, it ended with only one route, and then it saved the interview, and then finally we are saving the interview, and finally we are writing the interview. So again, within the write interview, in save interview, we don't make any LLM call, we just save it. But in write interview, again, we make an LLM call. Now, while we are writing an interview, there are certain system instructions that are being created. These are again the instructions that we looked at within our code, and these are the instructions that are passing under the system message. Again, you are providing that use this source to write your section. So now use this source to write your section is the human message. Purely think of it like as an output that you have got from the answer question, and then you are passing it as a human message and then getting the final response. So the output from the answer question that comes in basically becomes as a human message to your OpenAI call, and then system instructions are purely the prompt instructions that you defined within your LLM call, and then finally you got a nice output, and that's it. You got an output based on the instructions that you defined in your writer for your writing section, and then that is it. So this is the premise entirely. We basically send out one analyst. We got created some questions using some OpenAI calls. We looked at those instruction messages, that what we had in the code and how beautifully they came all the way within langsmith within our traces. So each project has their own trace. That's what we could use within langsmith, and for every run it will show you how it spans out for your respective system messages, for your human messages, for your AI messages, what all tools you have called, and you could basically take a look at those. Then analyst created question, it send out, it uses certain tools for generating certain search queries, and those are being utilized by experts to answer the questions that are being asked by analysts. And then finally we use writing section to structure those reports that it has given to us, and we generated some response. So yeah, so that's the premise. In the next video, what we are going to do is, so far we are doing it sequentially. We created one question, we created answers, and then we continue to do that. But then we could fairly parallelize this. There is a way to do that in langgraph. We'll look at in the next video how to do this all parallelized, so that we could save some time and then got the response really quick. All right, thank you so much. Stay tuned for the next video.